Every once in a while, a video game comes along and gives an experience one never forgets. My earliest memory of this was upon starting Super Mario Galaxy for the first time. My tiny 8-year-old mind just couldn't handle it, bounding and leaping forward through the Mushroom Kingdom, only to be stopped by Bowser's tyrannical reign of terror. The opening sequence filled me with joy as Mario comes to the rescue, awe as Bowser steals an entire castle, and wonder as I ascend into space, and terror as Mario gets annihilated from the bridge and seemingly falls to his doom. Later, you wake up and start your intergalactic adventure as you bound through the universe that becomes a personal playground. Every moment it throws at you one after the other is pure serotonin-inducing Mario goodness. I really don't need to say anything else about this game because it speaks for itself. In contrast, the last time this happened was when I started exploring the lands between in Elden Ring. A barren wasteland gives way to a glorious glowing tree. Walking for a few minutes in the correct direction will put an enemy that is nearly impossible for you to beat right in your path. Like a lamb to the slaughter, you fall, only to wake up to an open world that is your personal coffin, but a very large coffin it is. You can go almost anywhere you want, the only caveat being that you need to stay alive. There are so many areas where you can die. The variety is almost overwhelming. Stormy hills, plentiful valleys, underground cities, scorched plains, dense foggy forests, and more. There is so much to this game, and it is almost all under your control. Easily a contender for Game of the Year, and the best open world since Breath of the Wild.
One of her kind is sure to seek the Elden Ring. Even if it does violate the Golden Order.
So at this point you may be asking, what do Super Mario Galaxy and Elden Ring have to do with each other? Well, almost nothing. But that is somewhat the point of this video. Both games have a fundamental difference of structure, tone, spectacle, and even goals. In one, you have very little choice in how your character controls, feels, attacks, defends, and traverses the world that the game throws at you. Yet the game is based around knowing these movements to figure out how to traverse a handful of levels that has one correct outcome. The other, however, is almost completely customizable, and you have the utmost freedom in how you choose to build your character. Your goal is to win your way, which means running the opposite direction until you're strong enough, rolling like a maniac and swinging your weapon at the enemy, rolling like a maniac and shooting fireballs from a distance because you're a coward, or finding an extremely broken spell and spamming it from a distance because you're even more of a coward than you thought. Yet despite these differences, both games left a lasting impression on me that is almost the exact same thing. How is this possible? You guessed it, they're both critically acclaimed games. They aren't critically acclaimed because of the game type or genre, they are just successful at what they want to accomplish. While Mario can be an open world game, this particular Mario game, Super Mario Galaxy, is very linear and runs with it. At the same time, Dark Souls games have some elements of linearity to them, like a final boss or a storyline. Both of these franchises don't stick to the formula they have had in the past, they evolve and change for the better. They don't lazily throw in the game design because it's popular for little reason. This video isn't actually about linearity or open world design, and it's not really about Super Mario Galaxy or Elden Ring either. It's about creating a game that is good despite market influences and pressures. Developers have a trend to make games that mirror the most successful genres or the most successful games themselves. However, this comes at a cost. Sometimes what makes the most money is completely crowded in mediocrity. If you think that saying just make a good game is hollow advice and should go without saying, well, you're not wrong. But I am not trying to say what is good or bad specifically about each genre, because a game should lean into its genre to create a story worth telling, or a game worth playing. Now more than ever, genre can be completely irrelevant when it comes to making a good game. In other words, it is no longer feasible to expect consumers to like your game just because it's a similar genre. About 6 or 7 years ago, there was a movement that got a little tired of linear action games because of market saturation. A lot of series had evolved or was created to include some form of action combat or adventure linearity. Resident Evil 6, Skyward Sword, Uncharted, The Evil Within, Tomb Raider, No More Heroes, even Final Fantasy 15 switched from turn-based tactical combat to mindless hold-a-button action combat. These were the games I heard about growing up, and people were already starting to get tired of them a few years after their releases. Why is that? Some of the games I listed are really good. Some are just okay, and others are just completely trash. I think it's the later two that really drive home the market fatigue in the industry. And I think that fatigue has already reared its head to live service games, and now it looks like open world games may be next. A lot of these new open world games have a very similar structure, with only a few that really challenge the open world formula. It doesn't help that the market for video games is extremely volatile at times, and does very little to service art in multiple ways. Profit takes place over fun, and it is evident in market trends as well. Let me take you back to 2011, when one of the first season passes was being offered for sale. The game was LA Noire. Now at first this probably seemed like a great deal because DLC was going to be sold separately anyway. If you're a big fan of the game, you can get all the additional add-ons for around a 40% discount, which is huge. Instead of buying one or two, maybe 3 of the DLC packs, just buy the season pass instead. You'll save money. Good deal, right? No way this could ever be abused in the future by other games, right?
Open your eyes!
Let me tell you about single-player season passes, cutting content for monetization, day 1 DLC, battle passes, and season passes. Thank goodness battle passes are the new standard, right? There's no way this could ever be taken advantage of, right?
Get this. Son of a bitch!
From then on out, a vast majority of AAA games had a season pass. Call of Duty, Battlefield, Assassin's Creed, Borderlands, Fallout, Far Cry, Batman, BioShock, Overcooked? No genre seemed to escape this trend, and there are still games that have them now. The newer trend is battle passes and item shops and cosmetics galore and locking every single cool thing behind a paywall. I can no longer play to get cool skins, I have to pay, which sucks. People accept it because it's supposedly less toxic than season passes, and don't even get me started on loot boxes. Games and sales that aren't as successful are usually never given the recognition that they deserve either. If there isn't a market for a certain type of game, that game will most likely never be made. This is why one of my favorite genre of games, adventure visual novels, are so niche. Ace Attorney, Professor Layton, Zero Escape, and the Somnium Files. All these games I love with all my heart, even if some of them can be very flawed. However, they aren't mainstream, which means that there's not a lot of games in the genre being made. Same thing with single-player games that have no DLC. It seems like it's less and less often that we are getting a single-player game where the entire experience is complete, and they didn't hold anything back for more money. Maybe I'm off my rocker a bit because, of course, video games have to sell so that the developers can make a living and feed their families. But even if it's true, it doesn't change the fact that some games often do 2 things that are detrimental to its own health. First, a lot of games try to be genres they shouldn't be for the sake of following a market trend. This is why an open-world Sonic game sounds absolutely awful to me. It betrays the original feeling of Sonic Adventure that I got when I was a kid. There was nothing greater than running from a massive garbage truck trying to kill you, even if the moment was scripted and corny as hell. My ideal Sonic game would probably be a bombastic speed trip with smart level design and a terrible action plot. And yeah, while games like Mario can be both linear and open world, it's because Mario's design allows for a certain type of flexibility. For Sonic, my goal is to move through the levels at a fluid pace. When I walk through an open world, I want to explore every corner, not roll around at the speed of sound. I would be punished for going fast. To avoid this conflict, you have to reinvent the Sonic wheel, per se. The second thing that games often do to hurt themselves is cross the streams of genres. That's why a non-linear open-world BioShock game sounds awful too. BioShock and BioShock Infinite had very clear messages and visions that they tried to present to the world. A story and an atmosphere that was handcrafted. It couldn't do that without restricting your actions and whereabouts, and that's totally okay because it's done well. An open-world game with a strong story often treads the fine line between linearity and true open-world design, and doesn't really stick to either. Oftentimes in an open-world game, you are free to explore the world however you want. That is, until you reach a story mission. Suddenly, walking in the wrong direction can remove you from the universe's fragile existence. Sometimes you can go hours without having access or integration into the open world again. A chief offender of this is a game we talked about previously, Final Fantasy XV. There is a great open world you get to explore, and you get to drive around with your buddies and see locations and hunt monsters and capture bases. The game then locks you into linear progression, some of it without your buddies after chapter 10, and there are 14 chapters. So for chapters 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, the main storyline is completely disconnected from the open world, which means that the game loses its appeal and identity in its final act. Enough negativity though. Let's talk about a game that does this genre justice, Resident Evil 2 Remake. Why do you think fans regard games like Resident Evil 2 Remake as being a step forward in the series? Because RE2 Remake perfects what the franchise does best without sacrificing any design choices to the pressures of current gaming landscape. While you're never going to avoid at least some market influence, I'm pretty sure Resident Evil went back to survival horror because PT did so well. Too much of it in a game severely lessens the amount of impact that the game could have on me. If I have to wrap the point of this video in a neat little bow, it is this. We should be supporting games that are devoid of any popular market influence or toxic monetization. If I am tired of anything, I am tired of the capitalistic influence of an ever-changing video game market that should target art, not profit. And look, I might be wrong about the Sonic and BioShock games. They could be amazing, and more props to them if they are. What makes any game amazing is the ability to leverage creative design choices in harmony with fundamental mechanics. This is an extremely nuanced topic and can't be summed up in one video. But if we learned anything from Super Mario Galaxy and Elden Ring, is that the most important thing is creating a world that people can enjoy themselves in, all while staying true to the success of previous titles.